Hey, everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking at a professional website without breaking your budget, Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs at below the competition way. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, time to give official shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international award-winning author Mia Mosensia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you love Missing by Mia Mosensia, available on Amazon paperback and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, 1 target, where truth is illusion and those you love will be the first go missing. It's available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. Missing by Mia Mosensia has garnered great reviews and even 11 endorsed by Howard celebrities, including Joanna Cassidy, Forbes, Riley, and Minneapolis. So grab your copy today for Goes Missing by Mia Mosensia, available on Amazon. Also, check out the Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com on over 40 podcast platforms heard in over 100 countries, including Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also, Anchor FM, iTunes, Google Play, Amazon, Audible, Apple Music. Also heard on HamiltonRadio.net, Diamonds FM, Oldies Radio, and a few networks coming soon. Take the Mike Wagner Show on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter today. And for great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com and check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. T-shirts, pop sockets, throw pillows, tote bags, hoodies, baseball gear, and more. Makes great gifts 24/7 for family, friends, and loved ones. Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. And for more great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com/Mia Mosensia for great books like Missing, Once, and Wrinkles. Also T-shirts, pop sockets, hoodies, phone cases, and more. Amazon.com/Mia Mosensia. Check it out today. I'll support the Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM, PayPal, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. Make sure you do so today. We're here with a terrific gentleman who's a writer and physician living in Central Michigan. His diverse works at spectacular fiction from the sublime to surreal appeared in award-winning fiction magazines around the world as well too. And he's also authored hundreds of articles on nutrition, health, wellness, as well as optimal prevention. Also, his new book tells a surreal story of Kevin, who had been released from prison after serving 6 years and featuring several twists. And his new book is called Deep Roots. And we'll also talk about his first book, Optimal Prevention, the 5 most common killers. What are they? Well, I guess we'll just find out. Live, ladies and gentlemen, from the Plus Studios somewhere in Central Michigan, the multi-talented writer and physician of his brand new book, Deep Roots, ladies and gentlemen, Edward Rosick. Edward, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank you, Mike. Wonderful to be here.
Well, it's great to have you on board, Edward. So you're a writer and physician living in Central Michigan. Your diverse works of spectacular fiction from sublime to the surreal appeared in award-winning magazines and articles as well. You also authored hundreds of articles on nutrition, health, also wellness, and optimal prevention. Your new book talks about the surreal story of Kevin, who had been released from prison 6 years after serving a sentence, and a number of twists have occurred along the way. You also had a book called Optimal Prevention, which you reveal the 5 most common killers, and also your new book, Deep Roots. And before we get into all that, Kevin, or Edward, I'm sorry, I'm getting a character so fast. Tell us how you first got started.
Well, Mike, I've always been a writer. I've been writing since I was literally 5 years old. So it's just something I've always done. And it's just I've continued to do throughout my life. Especially in the last 10 years, I think my writing has really taken off, both in nonfiction and fiction.
Mm-hmm. And what was that one precise moment that simply influenced you into what you're doing for the rest of your career?
Well, again, it's when you're a writer, and as you know, because you talk to a lot of writers, I mean, it's just something we need to do, right? If we're not writing, we're grumpy and we're miserable, and it's just something we need to do. So it's just something I enjoy. It's something I think I've gotten better at as the years have gone by. I like honing a craft, whatever that craft may be, in my case, writing. And so, like I say, probably in the last 10, 15 years, I think my writing has gotten better. Actually, I know it's gotten better. And hopefully readers are thinking that too. So.
Mm-hmm. And what actually got you really involved into writing? You said you started at an early age and then it got better at 10, 15 years. What was that one moment that simply really got you more intense into writing?
Yeah, good question. It was just probably 10, 15 years ago, it was just a matter of, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm either going to do it just as a hobby every now and then, or I'm really going to buckle down and really start writing for publication, for pay, right? That's, am I going to get paid for what I do? And see if I can make a go of it as I get a little bit older here in life. So
Mhm.
that's really where it
Mhm.
was.
Now, do a lot of the subject write about just simply just come to mind just like that, or do you have to sit down and think about what to write, or do you have like a huge list of what to write about?
Well, certainly in terms of fiction, I probably have a huge list. It's really hard for me just to write one story, although that's what you need to do when you're a fiction writer, because if you don't, you'll never get anything written. And probably that's an issue I had earlier on. But I have enough ideas that would last me if I lived to be 150 years old. So that's I'm not going to run out of ideas.
What are some of the ideas you had in mind?
I mean, I write about everything. I mean, fiction is imagination, right? I've been told, and I think I have a really good imagination. So anything. I mean, my genre has skewed more toward horror in the last few years. But I mean, you can find horror in almost anything, especially in the world we live in, right? There's some pretty horrific stuff going on out there. You don't even need to go into the supernatural realm. And once you go into supernatural, the sky's the limit.
I was going to say horror movies as well too. You really don't need to go pay money to see a horror movie. Sometimes you have on your smart device or anything in social media, and I think it's getting me more reality these days. So,
Absolutely, yeah. Sometimes it's hard to think up something to write because you say, I'm going to write this, and people won't believe it, and then it pops up like you say on your mobile device. So
hmm and who are some of your favorite writers and authors growing up?
again, as a horror writer, there's always Stephen King and Dean Koontz. I mean, those were the big ones back in the day. Now my reading certainly tends to be a lot more diverse. I mean, I read everything from westerns to literary fiction to science fiction to horror to drama. I mean, whatever's written well. I mean, that's really what I'm looking for now. Something that's written well. Joe Lansdale is a big, I guess, influence or just a writer that I really look up to and the works that he's done. He's written a very diverse range of fiction, again, Western to horror to science fiction. And he writes some really good advice for new writers. So he's
hmm
somebody, if he writes something, I'll buy the book sight unseen. So,
Hmm. That's really interesting. What are some of your favorite books growing up?
boy, that's a good question. Again, early Stephen King, Salem's Lot, The Stand, early Dean Koontz, stuff like that. Dan Simmons is another favorite writer of mine. He's done a lot of great things. The Terror, Drode. Um, there's a ton. I'm one of those people who has literally hundreds of books on his bookshelf. So
hmm You also have 900 books. You also have 100 articles written about your work. You also have your new book, Deep Roots, also Optimal Prevention. We'll get to those in just a minute. But first, listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by SoundWeb Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Looking at a professional website without breaking your budget, Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, time to give official shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson-Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you'll love Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon paperback and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, 1 target, where truth is illusion and those you love will be the first go missing. It's available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. Missing by Mia Molson-Zia has garnered great reviews in Eve 11 Age Wars by Howard celebrities, including Joanna Cassidy, Forbes Riley, and many others. So grab your copy today for Goes Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon. Also, check out the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com on over 40 podcast platforms, heard in over 100 countries. Also on HamiltonRadio.net, Diamonds FM, Oldies Radio, and a few networks coming soon. Take us with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter today. For great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com and check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. And for more great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com/Mia Molson-Zia for great books, merchandise, and more. And don't forget to support the Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM, PayPal, themikewagnershow.com. Make sure you give generously today. We're here with writer and physician living in Central Michigan, Edward Rosick here on the Mike Wagner Show. And let's talk about your book, Optimal Prevention, the 5 most common killers to prevent. And tell us more about the book and what are the 5 most common killers?
Yeah, so in the Western world, the 5 most common killers are, I want to make sure I get this right, heart disease, cancer, cerebrovascular disease, things like strokes, diabetes, and Alzheimer's. So they're all diseases that unfortunately medicine, or at least mainstream medicine, really doesn't have a lot to do in terms of helping, right? I mean, the war on cancer started under Richard Nixon, and that was 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah, I think it
And
was 72, somewhere around there, maybe 69. It's like, was he like president at the time or like vice president or before that?
I think he was president. I think, again, I was just a little kid. So, but so it's been a long time. And yet people are still dying by the millions of cancer today. So what I really wanted to do was write a book available to everybody, not just physicians or not just people well-versed in medicine, that could give people common sense, scientifically based ideas on how to prevent those diseases. My background and training is in preventive medicine and public health and holistic medicine. So there's a lot of nutritional components involved in that as well. And so I really wanted to write a book that gave people ways that they could do themselves without having to go to their doctor. Of course, I always want them to talk to their doctor about any changes they do in terms of medicine, in terms of their health, but what they could do to help prevent those diseases, because it's a lot better if you can prevent something than having to treat something. Cancer first and foremost, right? If you can prevent cancer, fantastic. Because once cancer sets in, especially in the later stages, there's just not a lot you can do. I mean, I've watched multiple family members suffer and die from cancer. At the top of the list, my mom and dad, and they died horrible deaths after suffering through rounds of chemo and radiation. So it's really not a good way to go, not a good way to get treated. So if you can stop it and prevent it, all the better.
You talk about the 5 most common killers as well, and you rattle them down. What are some of the ways to prevent, like the 5 common killers? You talk about the cardiovascular disease, heart disease, and some of the others as well too. What are some of the common tips and strategies to prevent those 5 most common killers to happen?
Yeah, great question, Mike. The number one thing, really, at least in this country and probably in many Western countries, is diet. The diet that most of us eat, me formerly included, is the standard American diet, or the SAD diet, because it is a SAD diet.
The SAD diet. What's your version of the SAD diet?
Well, yeah, it's a diet high in fats, trans fats, high in sugars, high in processed foods, high in foods with a bunch of additives and chemicals. Again, nutrition or non-nutrition, as I like to say, that our bodies were never meant to have. We're meant to eat basic natural foods, and it's hard to get those these days. It's hard to get those because they're expensive. We've all of us are getting blasted by this horrendous inflation that's hitting around the world, and and food prices are taking a brunt of that. So in America, the cheapest foods are the worst foods for you. They're the most unhealthy foods. Right? It's easy to stop at your local fast food joint and pick up a burger, fries, and a soft drink that has 1,500, 2,000 calories. That'll satiate your appetite, but it does nothing for your nutrition. In fact, it's horrible for nutrition. So all those, at least the standard American diet is a high inflammatory diet. It causes a lot of inflammation in your body. And more evidence is coming out that inflammation impacts all those chronic diseases, every disease I talked about. If you're in a high inflammatory state, you're much more apt to get cancer. You're much more apt to develop heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, all those horrible things that are killing us.
And also GMOs as well too. That's been pretty much just cut right off after having it go on for God knows how long. That's another killer right there too. Is are eating foods that they're really high in GMOs. I mean, corn and meats and everything. Oh my God.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head, right? Because not only the GMOs, who knows what's going on in their molecular structure, the GMO foods, the GMO grains are made so that the pharmaceutical and the pharmaceutical industrial agricultural groups can sell a bunch of glyphosate and other herbicides and pesticides, again, that we know are horrible for the human beings, for all of us. So yeah, people need to get back, and I talk about this extensively in the book. The more natural based diet, organic if you can. Unfortunately, organic food can be very, very expensive.
Mhm.
So
Do you think the price of organic food is going to start getting lower and lower and lower as the demand starts getting higher and higher and higher in the future?
I think it will, and I've certainly seen some of that. I mean, it's definitely still higher, which kind of blows my mind, right? It shouldn't be higher. They're not using chemicals on it. They're not using herbicides. They're not using pesticides. It should be cheaper. But I do see that going down, and I see the demand for it going up. People are waking up to this fact. People are waking up to that. Hey, this war on cancer has been, quote unquote, war on cancer has been going on for 40, 50, 60 years, and it's really not doing anything. What can we do to ameliorate that ourselves? And so again, optimal prevention was just to get the book out in everybody's hands, right? The person who doesn't have a PhD in chemistry, that they can read this, say, oh, okay, this makes sense. Everything I write about in the book is backed up by scientific studies. Everything. I'm not making outlandish claims about anything. So.
Hmm. And plus too, I was thinking about the whole thing, war on cancer as well too. That Richard Nixon did. And what do you think started the whole thing on the war of cancer? Was it somebody in his family, or did it come from someone like, say, a physician that was advising him or something? Or that's an interesting concept, the war on cancer. It's like many of us practically forgot about, or nobody lived through it during the Nixon administration.
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know why it started. Being being somewhat cynical in terms of the whole political process, it probably was just a good soundbite, he thought, and to get people's minds off the Vietnam War and
Oh yes.
all that other stuff. So yeah, I mean, it sounds good. It's a way to push money toward friends and companies that uh, are involved in this quote unquote war on cancer. So it's been going on for a long time, and as a physician, I still see the ravages of cancer in many of my patients, and it's a horrible thing.
Hmm. And of course, going from cancer and going from optimal prevention, you also have a book out there too, which is basically called Deep Roots. And your new book tells about the surreal story of Kevin, who had been released from prison, serving 6 years, and a lot of twists and turns. And tell us more about the book Deep Roots, and about Kevin and serving 6 years for prison sentence. And tell us a bit more about the book, and especially about Kevin.
Sure. So, Deep Roots is a story about Kevin Ciano, a 31-year-old guy who grew up in Detroit, uh, was sort of railroaded into prison, spent 6 years up at Fairview State Penitentiary, which is a prison in northern Michigan, all fictional, of course. Comes back to Detroit to try to get his life back together. And unfortunately for Kevin, he starts developing these strange lesions on his body, and he doesn't know what they're from. As the story goes by, these strange hair-like protrusions start coming out of his body. And again, as the story goes along, we learn that these strange hair-like lesions, which are very painful and disturbing to Kevin, may not only be killing him, but they may lead to the end of the world. So.
Hmm. And how did these lesions develop? Was it in prison, or was it like after prison?
Well, the lesions occurred after prison. I won't give it away because that's one of the things of the book, but it occurs after prison, and it's connected to a bunch of scarifications, and tattoos he had forced upon him in prison by a very, very evil guy named Charles Riodona. So as the story goes along, I slowly reveal what's the connection between the lesions and the hairs and the scarifications and the tattoos,
Hmm.
how it all comes together.
Hmm. And also Kevin serving 6 years in prison. What did he commit the murder for? And was it like a just trial, fair trial? Or was he like wrongly accused?
He wasn't wrong. He actually it was really an assault and battery. So it was a simple assault and battery, which should have been plead down to. It could have even been just probation. But unfortunately, his assault and battery was on the son of a police officer, and so he got slammed hard by the penal system and ended up having to do 6 years at a maximum security prison. So he was somewhat railroaded by the system.
Hmm. And
And
also
once
go on. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So, and then once he got to prison, he did commit a murder in prison. That's what spiraled things out of control for him.
And that's where he got back to where he got sent back to Fairview. Then also more things that happened as well too. Another confrontation trying to battle the lesions, and what else did he really have to battle, and what was he able to conquer? I guess that's another point. What was he able to conquer?
Right. And so as the story goes along, he's not only trying to figure out what's going on with the lesions, but and then the subsequent hairs, but he also has to deal with one of the prisoners that is also released from Fairview that comes after him. Again, I won't tell you readers because I want them to be surprised, but so he's also having to deal with that. He's also dealing with a new relationship that he develops with a woman, Sherry Musgrave, who's part of a fire ensemble group called the Detroit City Fire Masters, sort of a performance group that does these strange exotic shows with fire and body suspensions and stuff like that.
Like a Cirque du Soleil.
Absolutely, only with tattoos and scarifications and body piercings.
Oh my gosh, that has got to be something too. And also, he's been sent to Fairview Prison for 6 years. What was the conditions of prison described in the story? Of course, you've several prisons. Some are good, some are bad, and it just ranges from like well kept to being like absolute slum out there. How would you describe the conditions in Fairview?
They certainly weren't a slum. I mean, they were a maximum security prison. So in maximum security, and I've had family members that were not incarcerated, but that were worked in the prison system for decades. In maximum security, you have the worst of the worst. So you have people like Kevin who really shouldn't be in maximum security, along with people like the bad guy, the really bad guy of the story, Charles Riodona, who certainly should be in a maximum security. And so when those two groups get together, bad things can happen, and they do happen.
And do you feel Kevin's been fairly charged being in maximum security, or do you feel like he could have been like in a different security prison, like say in another facility in Michigan?
Yeah, he should have been in a step down facility, medium security, even minimal security. He wasn't a threat. Again, his issue was that he beat up the son of a cop, and when you do things like that, generally, and you don't have a lot of money, and he's not rich, he's just a working class guy, bad things happen to you.
And what do you want readers to get from reading the book Deep Roots?
Well, I've been told by a lot of people who've read it so far that it's a very fast paced book. That's what I wanted to write. I think horror should be fast paced. I mean, there can be psychological horror. This is a little different than that. It's a page turner. I think once you read one chapter, you want to read the next one and the next one. So it's a fast read. I mean, if people want to sit down for, one night or 1 week and plow through a book and be scared and disturbed and maybe even a little horrified, it's certainly the book for them.
And I can see that, making a movie as well too. Maybe Silence of the Lambs, like in fast speed or anything like that. So
yeah, I think it would transfer very well to cinema, and it's in Detroit, and I don't think Detroit not doesn't get. I think Detroit should be used a lot more because, excuse me, it's a city that's been around. It's been one of the first cities that were colonized by the Europeans. It was inhabited for thousands, maybe tens of thousands of years before that. So it's a city with huge history. As you know, being from the Midwest has huge history, right? That most people or many people don't know about. So I really enjoy writing about Detroit and Michigan in particular.
Okay, and also too that it's almost like they're critically acclaimed as well too, just like the just released from your thing, Crimes of the Future as well too, and horror amateur David Cronenberg. So it's just like Crimes of the Future, being inspired by it too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I should write David Cronenberg a thank you note for putting that movie out now, because it really ties in, because there certainly is very, very in your face, if you will, body horror in Deep Roots, and I wanted to make it that way. So I love David Cronenberg. I think he's a auteur. He's an excellent filmmaker, and Crimes of the Future was excellent. I don't know if you got to see it yet, but it was.
We'll certainly make a point and do so. Where can we find your book, Deep Roots, Optimal Prevention, and more of your works at?
Yeah, so great question. The easiest thing to do is go to my website, which is www.edrosick, that's edrosick.net. And that'll link you up with my stories, with Deep Roots, with optimal prevention. And in fact, when readers go there, starting the end of this week, they'll be able to read a free short story. I'm going to start putting up free stories up there every month.
Oh,
So
we're certainly looking forward to it, and we'll do so. What's coming up for Ed Rosick? We'll find out just 1 minute. Listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by SonicWeb Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Also brought to you by official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Moses Missing, available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. We'll be back with author and physician from Central Michigan, Ed Rosick, after this time. We're back with author Edward Rosick of Deep Roots and Optimal Prevention here on the Mike Wagner Show. And Edward just had some really good insights to what you did as a writer, physician, learned a lot about optimal prevention, everything, and the story about Deep Roots. Of what else can we expect from you in 2022 and beyond, Edward?
well, I have a couple short stories coming out in some anthologies, so hopefully those will be out this year. I'm about 40,000 words into my next novel, called Wahila. Wahila will take place in the Huron Mountains of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I'm sure you're familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
I actually went to undergrad school up there, so I'm very familiar with that area. It's for people who aren't familiar with Michigan's Upper Peninsula, it's also referred to as the Siberia of the Midwest. It's a very unforgiving, very brutal environment, especially in the winter. So this story takes place in the winter in a cabin, isolated cabin in the Huron Mountains, with three people: 35-year-old female physician, 41-year-old wolf hunter from Alaska, and a 13-year-old Native American boy. And why they are trapped in this cabin due to a essentially storm of the century, a bomb cyclone winter storm. They're also having to deal with a Wahila. Wahila is a mythological wolf-like, bear-like monster that is somewhat common in the mythology of the Native Americans, especially Northern Native Americans.
That's really interesting. We're certainly looking forward to that, especially around the season as well too for Northern Michigan. And who do you consider biggest influence in your career?
Boy, I probably Stephen King, just because I think for all horror writers my age, he was the man. He was the guy. I mean, he came from not nothing, but he really blew upon the scene and it's continued on for decades. So I would say Stephen King. The second person though would be Joe Lansdale, just because of the breadth and width of the story he writes.
Okay. And what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
Uh, in terms of fiction writing.
It can be anything.
Oh, in terms of fiction writing, I think anybody, I did a talk yesterday at a local bookstore, and my advice was, number one, everybody has a story to tell. We're all born storytellers. Number two, if you want to be a writer, you have to read a lot, read everything, and you have to write. You got to sit down every single day and write, even when you don't feel like doing it. And that's, to me, one of the hardest thing to do.
Mm-hmm. And certainly the most important to do. We'll certainly take up on that. We're with author Edward Rosick of Deep Roots and Optimal Prevention here on the Mike Wagner Show. Edward, a very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely fantastic. Looking forward to having you again soon. Make sure you keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Love to have you back. Once again, tell us about your upcoming projects. What's your website? How do people contact, or can people purchase or check out your books?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And thank you for having me on. I definitely would love to be back on again. Best way is go to my website, www.edrosick, that's EDROSICK.net. That'll get them to my books. They can always get any of my books on Amazon. Some bookstores, especially here in Michigan, are starting to have them. If they don't have them, go to your bookstore and ask them to carry it. That'd be great.
We certainly do so. Once again, Ed, a very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely amazing. Looking forward to having you soon. Make sure you keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Love to have you back. We wish you all the best. You've got a great future ahead.
Thank you, Mike. Take care.